Hi everybody. As Renee said, my name is Cindy Knowles. I have a master's degree in herbal science. But my passion is sustainable living, basically. So I think the best way to get it to a focus point in terms of what your positioning statement is, let's go in terms of what is a circular green economy, because ultimately that's where we want to get at the end of the day. But in order to get there, we need to see where we are right now. And as you know, we are in the middle of an energy crisis. So what does the energy crisis actually mean to us, to the economy, and what are the repercussions thereof? So it's not only a matter of there's no electricity, but it is a matter of what is the impact that no electricity has on food sustainability, on our livelihoods, on the economy as a whole, on your household as a whole. And so we need to unlock those different parameters in order to understand exactly the severe impact thereof. So as you know, our energy crisis is getting worse and worse. And so what does that mean? That means that eventually, soon, according to the Minister of Energy, we are going to have a grid collapse. So a grid collapse basically is when everything will go offline. That is electricity, your cell phone, everything that needs electricity to function will go offline. That will trickle down to your food being grown, your food getting into your shops, cold storage along the way to preserve the food preservation in the shops. Then it means the food getting to your homes. Is it how long is it going to stay fresh? Because now your fridges don't work. Can you even buy food at the shops because the tellers don't work? And then once you have your food, how long is it going to stay fresh? Everything is impacted if you just think of that. Now, if you think of your parents or you in your jobs or whatever it is that you do to make money, to survive, and so forth, can you do your daily functions without electricity? So it's like you have to now start thinking, going back to the Stone Age, as they say, because we need to start thinking of ways to do things before, IT, electronics, technical equipment, electricity, all those things came along, because our lives are so centered around those things that we cannot function properly without them. I mean, how are you going to do your assignment? You need to research. You need the internet to research. You need electricity to get onto the internet. You need your signaling, your Wi-Fi signaling to get your data, to get online. So everything is so integrated and they play off each other. So if you can't perform your job function, how are you going to get paid? How's your work that you are doing going to impact the economy? Because it obviously will. Because if what is happening to you is happening to every other business around you and in your city and in the country as a whole, just imagine how chaotic things will be. Nobody can do work at the moment because there's like no power, there's no nothing. So then you think of, it goes down to your sewage and your water. If there's no electricity, you can't open the tap and water comes out because everything is power generated. They need to push and pump the water so that it can get down the pipes and into your tap. So you'll have no water. You'll have nothing to pump your sewage away. So you can't flush the toilet. You can't, that type of thing. So it literally impacts us on such a huge scale. And so we need to try and think of ways to circumvent, counteract, and preempt, so to say, the eventuality of this happening while we still have time. So in order to do that, we need to think of ways that we can improve and boost our sustainable living. So what are the different ways that you can do that? You need to focus on renewable energy, on recycling. The big buzzword internationally is your carbon footprint. So your carbon footprint is how much energy or how much things you use that emit carbon dioxide into the environment, because the whole concept in the world is climate change. So everything that you are doing also fits into climate change. Another thing of what is going on is that the UN has sustainable goals. It's called the UN Sustainable Goals 2030. And every country by the year 2030 needs to adhere to or have implemented these sustainable goals. And it's a whole long list of goals that you need to try and implement in your daily lifestyle. And so these things touch on those sustainable goals. And so, for example, if you are doing a business proposal, you need to think along those lines, because if you want to get funding and you are writing your business plan, you need to etch out how you are going to overcome a few of those sustainable goals, because it impacts your very daily lives. So you need to think about how can you assist in the whole sustainable livelihood through attaining these sustainable goals. So these concepts are very far reaching, and they really touch every part of your life, from your daily living to when you want to start your business. So it is very important to understand the connection, to make the connection and make it happen as well. So when you think about renewable energy, those are just alternative energy sources besides your electricity. So that would be hydroelectricity, which is when water is pumped. That would be renewable batteries. And it would also be things like solar power, which is a very big thing right now. And unfortunately, not all of them can work all the time. For example, if you are in Johannesburg, solar power is going to work in winter, because they don't have a rainy season in winter. They just have a cold season, but the sun shines. In Cape Town, solar energy might be a problem because we have a very rainy season in Cape Town. So where are you going to get the sun? How are you going to store the energy in the batteries to produce energy for your household, for the city, and so forth? So all these renewable energy systems have sort of a negative side to it. And so we need to think of how can we circumvent that as well. So hydroelectricity, we have a lot of water. We have the sea, we have dams, we have rivers. All of those can be implemented and used for hydroelectricity. So it's just basically pumping the water round and round, and through stores it into the battery, and it can then be used even when the sun is not shining. But the battery can only use or store so much electricity or energy at a time. So what are you going to do after that? It cannot be a permanent solution. So you need to try and think of ways around circumventing or having like a backup plan, so to say. So with hydroelectricity, as you know, Cape Town is fortunate. Our load shedding has not been as bad as the rest of the country. That is because our local government has tried to implement things like the hydroelectricity and the solar energy and so forth. Now, the hydroelectricity has played one of the biggest parts in how we can then be on a lower grid now, because they're pumping the water. Yes, the water is going in a cycle, but they have to pump the water out of the dam and back into the dam in order to create the energy flow. And that is causing the water to evaporate. So more water is being lost on top of our daily usage as well. So now we have an energy crisis, and we soon might have a water crisis. So I don't know if you remember in 2017, we had a huge water crisis where we could only shower like once a week for 30 seconds, and it was just crazy. And so we might be going back to that again in Cape Town, because we're trying to manage the electricity and using hydro, but the downfall is that it's now using the water up more than we can replenish and so forth, because there hasn't been enough rain, and that's the only way to replenish the water. So there's another problem. And so we need to think, how can we circumvent, once again, what can we do to alleviate this problem? And so all of those things trickle down to food security, because you need water, and you need sun, and you need electricity to grow your food, especially on a big scale. So because Eskom now is not producing enough electricity for the farmers, because they produce their food on a large scale, either through hydroponics, aquaponics, or just greenhouse. And so they have these lights that shine 24/7 so that photosynthesis can take place, so that the yield can be quicker, so that you can grow more veggies in a shorter time span than your normal garden outside or your normal farm in the open. And so all of those things are hampering the yield. The amount of vegetables and food that is grown is now cut in half. So that causes another problem, because most of our vegetables and fruit are exported because they are of such good quality to Europe and first world countries and even Asia and so forth. So that is our big money maker in our country. So now, with the yield being half of what it was before the Eskom crisis, somebody's going to have to suffer. So who's going to suffer? They can't allow the economy to suffer because it's already busy crashing due to Eskom. And so they're going to, whatever the farmers make, they're going to export it. So that leaves you and me. We are not going to have food soon. So what are we going to do? So there's a huge disaster waiting to happen. We're going to have a famine soon. We're going to have a water crisis soon, and we're already in an energy crisis. So how do we get around that? These are the things that we need to consider. And so with those concepts in mind, how do we bring it back to making a circular economy? So basically, we need to think of trying to re-educate people in terms of seeing what is actually fundamental in life. And without food and water, you cannot live. So none of those other things are as important as your sustenance for your daily survival, basically. So how do we get food and water on our tables and in our house, and how can we then use those things to generate an income for ourselves? And so that is where we want to go with this concept. We want to think along the lines of smart ways to get people to start growing their own food. Should the famine come, they will have a little food that they can grow. They need to start thinking of ways to harvest rainwater. That basically means is setting up your house in such a way where there's pipes and there's drums and things to catch whatever rain or dew or whatever condensation is happening, to catch that and keep it until you need that water, because we're all going to need it sooner or later, should the blackout happen or the famine come or the water shortage, whichever one comes first, you see. So we need to start preempting and thinking of what measures can we put in place to prepare ourselves, to prepare our communities and the city at large, should this type of thing happen. And so through that, we want to start food home gardens. We want to tell others about this and that they need to open their eyes to the reality of what is coming very soon. And they need to start preparing as well. So it's about thinking of clever ways on how to do that. And that's what you guys need to do. You need to think of clever ways of how to actually navigate should something like this happen. What are you going to do? What type of measures can you think of to put in place for either one of those directions that you want to go, you know? And then at the end of the day, once you have grown your vegetable garden, how can you now turn it into an economic concept to make the circle full of a circular green economy? How can you do that? So there's different ways of, once you grow your vegetables, you can go into agripreneurship, you can go into medipreneurship. So what are those things? Agripreneurship basically is when you use your vegetables and you start making things like pestos and sauerkraut and juicing, you know, healthy alternatives that are food-based, culinary, that you can sell. Because not everybody has that skill. Not everybody knows how to do that. So that can bring, so yes, you are growing your food, but you can also bring money in. So you can make money for yourself and become an entrepreneur in that way. So think out of the box of what type of agripreneurship concept can you actually do with your vegetables. You know, you don't just have to sell the vegetables as is. Think of clever ways to turn it into money. There's also, you can start making implements to assist your gardening of your veggies. So you can make planter boxes, you can make planter bags, you can make water portable water tank holders, you know, with fabric and so forth. So where you can harvest the rainwater. So these are all different aspects that you can think about, that using the coming problem or disaster, but preempting it in an entrepreneurial and clever way. So these are things you need to think about out of the box for your survival, because it literally is your survival that you are going to be considering. And then what is medipreneurship? So this is now using what you have grown for medicinal purposes, because before Western medicine came along with tablets and pills and shots and all these things, they used herbs in order to survive for thousands of years. And so that traditional medicine still works today as well as it did in 1444. So you need to learn ways of how to harness the curative properties of your herbs and your vegetables, because it's not only herbs that heal, but vegetables as well. For example, I had vertigo last week, and that's an infection of the middle ear. So my head was spinning and pain and all of that. And I simply took a half an onion, heated it up, squeezed the juice out, and put it in my ear. And the onion has two ingredients in there. It's called quercetin and allicin. And those two together draw out the infection and heal whatever the infection is. So it draws out the pain, it draws out the infection, and it heals the problem that you have. Yes, it takes a little longer than Western medicine. If I had to take tablets, I would have been healed within a day, but it took 2 or 3 days. The point is, it still worked. So when all the shops are closed because there's no electricity and you get sick, how are you going to heal yourself? What are you going to do? Because the hospitals can't function because there's no electricity. You don't have petrol because there's no petrol to pump there's no electricity to pump the petrol into your car. So you need to learn how to use what you have grown sustainably by yourself to heal yourself, not just feed yourself. So the concept of a food garden is so much bigger than you realize, and the impacts are far-reaching and it will really minimize your carbon footprint, but it will boost your economic cycle at the same time, because now you can go into a medicinal direction by making tinctures, by making balms. Should you have cuts or burns or scrapes or whatever the case may be, or gout or arthritis. You know, it's winter, lots of people have arthritis, so you make a healing balm that helps with the joint pain, and you use the ingredients in your garden and you sell that. So there's another entrepreneurial avenue that you can go down. So it's not only culinary, but can also be medicinally. And so you can also like use some of the things, should it get really bad, for example, there's certain types of vegetation like the snake plant, that you can actually simply just squash and roll up and make into what do you call a rope. You can also make little thin pieces of rope as wicks for candles should you run out of candles. You can also, there are also certain plants like the malva plant that you can dry out and use as a soap. So you dry out and you crush it into a powder, and that can be your replacement for soap because it has saponification properties and so forth. So it's about going back to, you know, the traditional style of living, but use it in today's environment to suit your needs and to make a living for yourself and to boost the economy when it seems there is no other way to boost it. You know, there's always look for the opportunity in something, in a disaster, so to say, because there is. Not everything is, most things are not only bad. Good can come out of something bad. I mean, if you think of all the scientists' inventions, it all came from something that didn't work. So they had to think of a way to get around this thing that isn't working. And that's how new inventions came about. So that basically is how you can close the cycle and bring it back to, you know, what it is that you need to do to make money for yourself. And there's so many other things. I mean, there's hemp, for example. Hemp can be used to make clothing. Hemp can be made, used medicinally, you know, the CBD oil and all of those things. So there are so many amazing properties in food, in fruits, in veg, and in your plant life that you can use just by taking the time to grow and learning a little bit of what you plant. And you have so many different avenues that you can go down to make money for yourself. And that can start your whole entrepreneurial journey. And you can go into renewable energy, you can go into agripreneurship, medipreneurship, all these different things. The possibilities are endless. So it's up to you and how out of the box you think on these different things and what it is that you think you can come up with.